Hello, everyone. Just a heads up that this is going to be a recorded session. And I'm going to ask everybody to just go on mute and turn your cameras off for the duration. If you have any questions at all, just drop them in the chat. And then I will alert Whitney and we'll go back and forth. After we're done and we're done recording, we'll probably have a few minutes to kind of share out and turn on cameras and talk. So we'll wait just a minute or two for anybody coming in late, but looks like we've got most everybody who's registered, missing a couple of people. And if you have any questions right now, go ahead and drop them in the chat. All right, Whitney, are you ready to go?
I am ready.
Okay, cool. Welcome everyone to Intro to Sewing. My name is Nick Ward-Bopp. I'm with the Black and Meech Makerspace at Johnson County Library. And you found this class, but we have a variety of other classes and services like remote 3D printing, intro to 3D modeling, remote vinyl cutting, lots of other offerings as well. All that stuff can be found at jocolibrary.org/events. And if you have any ideas for programs or feedback about our programs, please let us know. We'll be keeping microphones off during the workshop today. If you have any comments or questions during the class, please add them in the chat and I will read them aloud to Whitney and the rest of the group. I want to introduce Whitney Manny. She's a textile expert, fashion designer, small business owner. She's recently been featured on a commercial with Joann's, if I'm not mistaken. So getting some national credit for all the awesome creative work that she's been doing. She's been an instructor with us for the last several years. She developed the curriculum for this class and the idea for this class, has a wealth of knowledge. So ask questions if you've got them. She is awesome. So again, welcome, and I'm going to turn it over to Whitney.
All right. Hey, everyone. Happy Friday. I'm so glad you all are with us in class today. Again, feel free to drop questions into the chat. And if you have any questions that are specific to the project, or if you have like machine questions, if you're working with a machine at home, that you just kind of want to make sure you know what you're doing with, I'll be glad to help. So I'm already threaded and ready to go. And just to know, I'll kind of be moving the camera around at different times, just so you all can see what I'm working on at different angles, but we'll go ahead and get started. All right, so I have my fabric cut and so this is an example of what we'll be working on, just a nice little zipper pouch. So this is the outside of my bag, this is the inside. And I will note that on this first bag, I did use cotton on the outside, but I used a satin for the lining. But this time I'll be doing my example with cotton on the inside and the outside. It just makes it a little easier. I would suggest not graduating to like satin linings until you're working with a heavier cotton on the outside. All right, so I've got my zipper. I'm using this fabric for my lining, and I'm using this fabric for my outer. So scooch y'all on the cutting table a little bit more. There we go. Oops. All right. So I've got my main pieces and just matching up what I think will work best for the pattern. I think that looks the best. Okay, so I basically want to make my fabric sandwiches. So right now I'm looking at the right sides of all my fabric. And when we say right side of the fabric, it basically means the side of the fabric that we want everybody to see from the outside. So if you have a pattern, it's a little easier because obviously this is the right side of the fabric and then this is the wrong side. So I want to make my sandwiches so the outer fabric's wrong side and the lining fabric's wrong side, I want those to touch. So I'll have this little situation. I'll lay that down. I'm gonna repeat for my other two fabrics. And at this point, I want to make sure you have an iron ready to go. This is a good point to make sure everything is nice and flat, wrinkle-free. Makes it easier to work with. All right. Okay, so I'm gonna flip it over so that way I'm looking at the outside of my bag. And I'm gonna go ahead and trim this one a little bit, trim my lining to match. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I've got my zipper. So you'll notice for the zippers, this is a 6-inch zipper. It measures total length longer than 6 inches. So the 6 inches refers to the measurement of the zipper stop. So from bottom to top is 6 inches. And then you always have a little extra surrounding it for you to work with your sewing machine. You don't want to cut any of this off. And the nice thing about the zippers we're working with is that they have plastic teeth. So they are easier to sew through if that's necessary, as opposed to a metal tooth zipper. If you hit the teeth of that zipper with your needle's just flying all over the place. So we don't want that. I'm gonna go ahead and open up my zipper. So I'm gonna take this opposite side. I'm gonna take this side right here. I'm gonna place my zipper with the pull down. So I want it to look like this. I'm gonna line that up with the very top edge of my fabric. And I'm just gonna put pins in. And I want the pin to go through the zipper, the outer fabric, and the lining, because I wanna be sewing through all three pieces. And I'm ready to stitch in the first side of my zipper. And we'll just be stitching as close as we can to these zipper teeth. So for one side of this zipper, I will show you all how I do it with a zipper foot, an actual zipper foot, and then how you can make it happen at home if you don't have a zipper foot with just a regular presser foot. So let's go ahead, since the regular presser foot is on, I'm just gonna work with that one right now, and then we'll switch to the zipper foot. And feel free to move the pull of your zipper as you need to. So while you're sewing, especially if you're having to use a regular presser foot, you might need to move the zipper out of the way, like start and stop and move the zipper pull out of the way. So I'm going to start at the bottom, and I want to start at the bottom of the zipper tape. And you'll notice that the width of the presser foot kind of matches up with the width of this tape. And I'm gonna move my needle just a smidge to the left so it's as close as it can be to the zipper teeth. So since I'm getting close to the pull, I'm going to put my needle down into the fabric, lift my presser foot, and then just slide that pull back down to the bottom. I'm going to go ahead and finish. All right, and that's what my first line looks like. So on a zipper foot, depending on what kind of machine you have, I know the presser feet for my machines are metal. Some of them might be plastic, but it basically, this is the general shape of a zipper foot. You notice these two notches. That is so you can basically put your needle all the way to the left or all the way to the right to get as close to those zipper teeth as possible. And I'm gonna make sure while I'm working, I'm clipping my threads. Just makes it easier. Once we get to the end. Okay, so I'm gonna switch this presser foot out. Get it ready. All right. So now I've got the second side to my bag. Uh-oh, making sure y'all can see. There we go. I'm just gonna take that other side of my zipper tape and repeat the same setup, the same pinning setup. But make sure the edges of your lining and your outer are matched up. There we go. Okay, so I've got my pins in and I'm ready to stitch. So the nice thing is I'm just gonna leave this unzipped. I don't really have to worry about the pull because my zipper foot is so narrow, it'll just be able to fit around it. So I have my needle all the way to the left. And I'm just gonna go ahead and stitch. You want to make sure when you're beginning and ending any stitch while we're working on this project that you are reinforcing your stitch. Okay, so that's my second side. Not too much of a difference from doing it with a regular presser foot. And that's really only because like changing your foot to a zipper foot is really only makes a big difference when you're working on like wearables. and you get to the point where you're doing separating zippers, invisible zippers, all that good stuff. Okay, so my zipper is in. Now I just want to press everything. Please be careful. You don't want to iron over the teeth of your zipper. It is plastic. Too much heat, you will, melt your zipper. So I'm gonna turn it inside out actually, close it, and I'm gonna press this flat. But take your time. Just kind of work along the teeth. You wanna get it as flat as possible. I'm sorry, you wanna press along the tape. I think I said tape.
Whitney, we got a request from Carmen, just asking you to slow down a little bit. It sounds like she is following along and maybe making hers at the same time.
Oh, okay. Is anybody else sewing while we're working?
Yeah, if anybody else is sewing along, just drop a message in the chat.
Okay, so I have it pressed flat. I'm gonna go ahead and at this point, it's not a sewing thing. If you want to just kind of trim those edges back a little bit. So I will do that while everybody
gets caught up. Awesome. And then there's a question about reinforcing. I'm assuming that was on your beginning of each stitch and then at the end of each stitch.
Yes, so I can, give me 1 second. I'll turn it around to my sewing machine and show you what I mean.
Awesome. And we do have about 3 or 4 at least sewing along. So that's great.
Okay, awesome. So I just basically trimmed those edges to where once the zipper is flat, you don't see them, and we'll be ready to top stitch it. So I'm gonna, just to answer that reinforcing question, and everybody's sewing machine looks different. The face of mine is digital, but reinforcing for me right here is this button, looks like a little U-turn button. And that just means, let me grab a scrap. I'm starting my stitch and then I'm going backwards.
Yeah, in some sewing machines, you have to be holding the foot down when you press that button.
Yes, and so I think pretty much any machine you need to like simultaneously do it. So
okay.
Some machines, like in this area, it'll be like a little lever that you hold down, and some it's a button. So on mine it's a button. Put my needle down. So I'm gonna go forward a little bit and hold this down to go backwards, and then go forward again. And then let's say I'm done. I'm gonna go to the end of my stitch line and then go backwards and forward again. And reinforcing, we do that just so things do not come apart, which is really important because pretty much when you're sewing something, you're sewing it for like use, for daily use, for to be worn. If it's a quilt, you want to make sure your seams don't come apart.
Yeah, and it's like, if you were hand sewing, you would basically tie a knot. And so this is just
exactly
a machine knot on top of the existing thread.
Exactly. And honestly, way sturdier. So. Okay. And then, are there any other questions in the chat?
No other questions right now.
Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and move forward. All right, so this is the stage I'm at right now. This is what it looks like from the inside. This is what it looks like from the outside. I got a hint of my zipper tape showing to get some of that fun color. And just to kind of keep the edges that's on the inside from fraying, I'm going to go ahead and top stitch. Now, top stitching is like doing a hem. And so you kind of want to take into consideration the color of your thread because basically you're going to be able to see it from the outside. So I'm just going to have this iron down flat like I do. I'm going to put a couple of pins in. I'm going to put them in railroad style. So that means just parallel to each other. That way I can easily pull them out while I'm sewing, because again, you don't want your metal needle to hit that metal pin and break your needle in the middle of your project. So I'm just put 3 in, that way I know I'm top stitching where I need to top stitch. And I'm just gonna start on one side, and I wanna be as close to the zipper as possible. So I will move you all to the front of the machine for this part, if I can. There we go. The hard thing about top stitching though is like you want to make sure you're catching the zipper tape underneath. I don't necessarily have like a trick or tip. You just kind of have to feel, and I'm going to make sure that my needle is all the way to the left when I'm on this side. I'm going to reinforce. So I would probably use like a pink thread or something normally to top stitch with, but all right. So that's what it looks like. I'm gonna do the other side. And you can also top stitch when you're top stitching your zippers. You can top stitch those with a zipper foot on if you have one. It makes it a little easier. All right. Okay, scoot y'all back out. Now we are ready to do our side seams. Just gonna press this a bit. Okay, so I'm gonna just flip this closed like that. Get some of these extra threads out the way. I'm gonna open my zipper up just a little bit. And basically we're working on a seam here and a seam here. So pins, if you need pins, be sure to grab some.
And Whitney, this is probably why you trimmed your fabric down to get it matched up, is so that then when you go to do this seam, do you know that you're, you know, kind of off the
Yeah,
road?
you have like a good guide.
Right. But otherwise you could just mark a line or do something like that to follow it, right?
Exactly. So I have both sides pinned. So I'm just gonna stitch boom and boom. And so on this side, even though the zipper is plastic, your stop at the bottom is still metal. So I wanna make sure I'm not hitting that stop. I'm just kind of going to the left of it a bit. So I will show y'all where I'm matching that up on my machine. Okay. So the metal stop is right here. I'm just going to keep my seam allowance. Basically, I want to just kind of keep the edge of this pressure foot matched up with the raw edges of my fabric. That's going to be my guide for my lines. All right. Clip. Okay, and then you'll repeat on the next side. And so I have my stoppers here. Again, just want to make sure I'm outside of it. Oops. And right now, I'm actually lined up with about 1/2 inch for seam allowance. Oops. Okay, so now I'm clipped. I'm just going to trim this down a bit so it's even. Okay, and then just reach into the bag from the bottom, because before we close this off, we want to make sure we can get into it. So be sure to open your zipper before we do that bottom seam. So, but before we do the bottom seam, I'm going to go ahead and use the zigzag stitch to kind of cover the edges of my seams. I'm going to switch to zigzag on my machine. And I only want to like basically overcast on the edge. So I want the zigzag to wrap around. So I'm just gonna, this is how I'm gonna have my fabric in the presser foot, just like halfway under, not all the way over. So I'm gonna have it about here and not like over all the way. So. And on most like presser feet, standard presser feet, there'll be a little notch in the presser foot to signify like that's halfway. So I'm lining it up with that notch. And even when we're doing zigzag stitch, you want to make sure you reinforce. And this will just help reduce fraying, and it gives it a nicer finished edge, especially if you don't have a serger. At home. So it's kind of wrapped over. Nice and neat. And get some of these threads out the way again. And I'm going to go ahead and repeat on the other side. Oh. All right, so that's both sides, straight stitch and zigzag. Now I'm going to switch back to straight stitch so I can do my bottom seam. And so for the bottom seam, you really can kind of choose what you want your seam allowance to be. Of course, standard is 5/8, but I'm going to go ahead and just rock out with 1/2 inch because that's what I did on the other two sides. And I am going to start at the edge and cross over. So I will have like a little crisscross moment. Okay. All right, so I got my straight, sorry y'all, got my straight stitch in. I'm gonna go ahead and zigzag. And remember, you wanna make sure you open your zipper up before you put your bottom stitch in. Otherwise, it'll be really hard to get in your bag. Okay, so now we are finished on the inside. So now we'll just flip it inside out. And once I have it turned the right way, I do want to press it from the outside. And sometimes just to help with the corners, I use the eraser like of a pencil. Just help push those corners out a little bit more. All right, and that is my bag. So I'm gonna press it.
It looks great, Whitney.
Thank you. And that is your bag.
I love the trick with the eraser to push the corners
Yeah,
out.
that's my mom taught me that trick. That's the front and the back. And you got a nice lined bag.
That is awesome. Does
Does
anybody have
anybody
any
have,
Yeah,
as I
go
say,
ahead.
anybody have any questions? While I'm on the line, I know people are going to get the recording, but if anybody wants to show me,
Yeah,
if they have something to show me.
at this point, if anybody wants to hop on camera and go off mute and kind of show what they're working on and ask questions, this is the time. A lot of people are asking me to send the recorded link. I will definitely do that. I probably going to get it uploaded this afternoon, and I should be have it all ready to go and send it out Monday at the latest, but hopefully I'll get it to everybody today. So everybody in the workshop, I'll just go ahead and send the link to the video. So somebody is asking, is this the same way that you would construct a pillowcase?
Yes. Yes, if you wanted to do like a pillowcase with a zipper at the bottom, yes, it would be the same way.
And probably quite a bit easier in some
Yeah,
ways.
because it's bigger.
Yeah. So the tolerances aren't as tight around the seams and the zipper.
Right. Yeah. The pillowcase, it would be a lot easier. And so you would do the same thing of putting your zipper in first on those two pieces and then doing your three big seams. You're just not lining it, basically.
Mm-hmm. And someone said they found it a little confusing with the print on the interior and exterior of the bag. And that totally makes sense. Like if one is not plain, then it can be probably a little busy, just,
Yeah,
while you're
it kind of,
constructing.
well, and when you have it on camera, it's kind of hard to explain right and wrong side of fabric. Yep.
And we've got that, the curriculum, the instructions that you built, we pass that along with the terminology. But if anybody has any questions about the terminology Whitney used or that we were using in the email that we sent out with instructions, let us know. We can send follow-up, clarifications or tutorials to other videos to help. Any other questions for Whitney? It doesn't even have to be about, the zipper pouch specifically. If it's, something just textile design related, anything about, her, the stuff she makes, Well, if you think of something, email me. I emailed everybody the info for the class. If you got a question, please let me know. Whitney, as always, thank you so much for taking the
Yes.
time to do this. And do you have any other big things coming up that people should keep an eye out for?
Not that I can think of.
Okay.
But I never know.
Okay. Okay. A few people saying thank you.
Yes, thanks for
They're
joining.
anxious to get started sewing on their bag. They just watched, so they're gonna get started. So yeah, that was awesome.
Cool. Yes.
All right,
Thank
Whitney.
you.
Well, thank you
Yeah.
again. Have a good weekend, everyone. Have a
Yes.
great
Have a good
weekend,
weekend, y'all.
and let us know if you have feedback on this workshop. If you're interested in other workshops, please let us know. All right. Thanks again, everybody. See ya.